Hello everyone, my name is Michael Rivera and today I'm going to be comparing myself to a blueprint. So, when most people look at a blueprint, they might just see, lines, measurements, walls, maybe just a bunch of notes that they don't really, make sense at first. But since I'm an architecture student, I see a blueprint a little differently. So, kind of like my visual aid would be this blueprint that me and my colleagues did at work. Just gonna show you something really quick. You know, kind of like showing floor plans, lines, measurements, details, codes, stuff like that. That are something that are really important to a project. And so, to me, a blueprint is more than just a drawing. It's like a plan for what something can become. It starts as an idea, then it gets worked on, changed, corrected, and eventually it can turn into something, real. And I feel like that specific thing, those specific details, connect to me because, I'm still building myself too. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not finished yet, but I do have goals, I have a direction, and also have a purpose. So that's why I'd say I'm like a blueprint because I'm detailed, I'm adaptable, and I'm built with a purpose. So to start off, I am detailed because in architecture, you know, little details or big details, any kind of detail matters a lot. Like if one measurement is wrong, or one wall is placed wrong, it can affect the whole project. So a small mistake can turn into a bigger problem later on. So, working in architecture, taught me that, you need to slow down and pay attention to the small things. So I've worked as an architectural designer for about 4 years now. And one of my bosses, Alberto Garcia, he's one of the firm principals there. He taught me, a lot about construction documents and what architects, actually do in the real world. So through that experience, I learned that being detailed is not just about making something look nice. It's about making sure that it works and that the work is clear. It's organized and correct enough for someone else to understand it and use it. I also try to be detailed in my own life. I'm the type of person who likes to understand how things work, whether it is architecture or even cars. I love working on cars because, honestly, it's kind of like a similar thing in a way with architecture. So you just have to look at the parts, figure out what's wrong, and just solve the problem step by step. So you can't just be guessing and hope it works. Architecture is kind of like in the same way. You have to think through the design, the structure, and the details. So being detailed is a big part of, who I am, and I just like fixing things and improving things and learning how things are, being put together. Second, I'm adaptable, because just like a blueprint, it's almost never perfect the first time. It goes through changes, corrections, and revisions in architecture, you know. So, one specific thing that, they taught us in architecture school that happens all the time is that you might think your project is going well, and then your professor, gives you feedback, and suddenly you have to change your design and rethink part of it, at first, so you get frustrated, but over time, you learn that changes are part of the process. Like, the first version is not always a final version, and that's okay. And I feel like I'm the same way. When I'm challenged, I might get stressed at first, especially when I have, a lot of schoolwork or deadlines. But I try to calm myself down and try to handle it step by step. And I try to ask myself, okay, what can I fix first? Instead of just looking at the whole problem at once, I break it down into smaller parts. That, helps me keep going. I think, you know, also being adaptable is important because life isn't something that always goes as you planned. Sometimes you have to adjust and learn from those mistakes and just keep on moving forward. And finally, I'm built with a purpose. A blueprint isn't random. Every line has a reason to be there. Every space has, is meant to do something. It's created with a goal in mind, and I feel like I'm trying to build, my life with a purpose. And in architecture, being an architecture student, I want to become, an architect, and I want to keep learning about, design, buildings, how spaces affect people, why those spaces are needed, what's required. And so, just like that, you know, like my path returning like to EPCC this summer to complete some of the courses that I was missing. I need those to complete my degree. And so, even though it's extra work, I know it's part of my path and I know that I need it. So, my purpose, not only comes from that, but also from, the people around me. I have an older brother who's a plumber, a younger brother who is a police officer at UTEP, and a younger sister who is studying at UTEP to become a dermatologist. And seeing everybody do, their own thing, and it just kind of like motivates me to, you know, do my own thing. And I also look up to like my bosses at work, kind of like I mentioned him, Alberto Garcia, and my other co-boss is Luis Guevara, who, they brought me in, and, they've shown me what architecture looks like outside of, school, because not everything is the same, being in school and working. And I've noticed that, that there's a huge difference in that. So they just taught me that, being an architect isn't only about, drawing cool buildings, but also about responsibility, communication, and just helping people understand, a project. So another thing about me is I try to help people when I can. Like I don't really help people expecting something in return. I always try to do it from the heart because I know, what it feels like to need help or guidance. So in a way, that's also kind of like part of my blueprint. It's part of how I want to be as a person. And yeah. So to conclude, I am like a blueprint because I'm detailed, I'm adaptable, I'm built with a purpose, and one of the reasons I'm detailed is because I care about how things work, and I can try to improve. I'm also adaptable because I'm learning how to deal with feedback, stress and change. I am built with a purpose because I have goals for school and my career and the kind of person I want to become. A blueprint may only look like lines for people at first, but with time, work, and a direction, it can become something real, and that's how I see myself too. I'm still a work in progress, but I'm building myself step by step towards my future. And yeah, thank you.